did bike courier work in San Francisco for about 2 years, mostly downtown, mostly Soma and the financial district. Summer of 2022, I was on a route that had me hitting the same tower off Market Street 4 or 5 times a week. That's where this started, and honestly, it took me way too long to notice something was wrong. The building was one of those older mid-rises they never fully renovated after the tech companies moved out. 4th floor, suite 412. The lobby directory just said, consulting services, next to the number, no company name. I never thought about it. Half my drops were places like that. The first delivery I remember clearly was a Tuesday in early August. Small painted envelope, dense, maybe 2 pounds. Origin was some warehouse in Fremont I didn't recognize. I took the elevator up, buzzed 412, and a guy opened the door. He was maybe 35, thin, dressed like he was trying to look like he worked in an office but hadn't nailed it. Button-down shirt, but the collar was wrong. Slacks that didn't fit right. Clean shoes though, weirdly clean. That's the kind of detail my brain files away without me asking. "Hey, package for Aaron," I said, checking the label. He took the tablet, smiled, and said, "Yeah, Aaron's not in. I'll sign for him." He signed, handed it back. I left. That's it. Happens all the time. Assistants sign, receptionists sign, whoever's at the desk signs. Nobody cares, as long as somebody in the office takes the box. 2 days later, I was back. Same envelope-looking package, same weight in my hand when I picked it up at the warehouse. Different name on the label. Marcus, something. Same guy answered the door. "Marcus is out. I'll grab it," he said, and signed. I noticed because his handwriting looked identical to Tuesday's. Not just similar, identical. Same slant, same weird loop on the R, but I only half noticed. I was running 11 other drops that day. This kept happening. I don't want to make it sound like I clocked it right away, because I didn't. My route rotated, my head was on autopilot, and when you do this job you stop registering people's faces after a while. They blur. But Suite 412 stopped blurring. Every single time I went up there, it was the same guy. Every time, he signed for someone who wasn't in. By late August, I'd counted at least 9 different names. Aaron, Marcus, Priya, Daniel, some woman named Kat, a guy named Jordan, a couple more I can't remember. Every one of them, apparently, worked at Suite 412. Every one of them was apparently out of the office the exact minute their package arrived. And every one of them had the exact same handwriting when this guy signed for them. The packages were the same too. All came from the same sender, some LLC out of Fremont with a generic name, the kind you'd forget as soon as you read it. Same padded envelope, same size. I got in the habit of weighing them in my hand before I brought them up, and they were always identical. Not roughly the same, like whatever was inside had been measured out. I want to be clear, I wasn't scared. Not yet. I was curious. It was the mental math you do on a long ride when your legs are moving and your brain is bored. Who ships the same thing to the same office 3 or 4 times a week, addressed to 9 different people, all of whom happened to be out? I asked him about it once, just casually. "You guys are always slammed, huh?" I said. "Everyone's always out when I show up." He looked at me for a second longer than he should have, not angry. Just checking something. Then he smiled and said, "Sales team, they're on the road a lot." "Right on," I said, and left. Sales team, 9 people, in a suite that, from what I could see when the door was open, had 1 desk, 1 chair, 1 laptop, and a stack of padded envelopes on the floor by the wall. No phones ring, no other voices, no coats on the back of chairs, nothing on the walls. I only got glimpses, but every glimpse was the same glimpse. The thing that finally pushed me was small, stupid even. Last week of August, I was doing a drop, and when he opened the door, I could see behind him that the stack of envelopes had grown, way bigger than a few days' worth, all still sealed. Whatever was coming into that office wasn't being opened, wasn't being sorted, wasn't being used. It was just piling up, or being moved somewhere I didn't see. That night, I sat on my couch with a beer and thought about it for a long time. I'm not somebody who calls the cops over a weird vibe. I'm really not. But the handwriting thing kept coming back to me. Signing for 9 different people in the same hand isn't just sloppy, it's a specific kind of not caring. Like whoever set this up didn't think anyone would ever check. I didn't call the cops. I emailed the dispatcher at the courier company, kept it professional, said I had a recurring address where the same individual was signing under multiple different recipient names, and I wanted to flag it because I knew that was against protocol for chain of custody. Attached 3 sample signatures I'd photographed on the tablet. I figured they'd tell me to mind my own business. They didn't. I got a call back the next morning from a woman in compliance whose name I forgot 10 seconds after she said it. She asked a lot of questions. What did the office look like inside? Had I ever seen anyone else there? What did the sender label look like? Did the packages ever feel like they had loose contents? I answered honestly. She thanked me, told me not to change my behavior on the route until they got back to me. 3 days later, I got pulled off that route entirely. No explanation. My dispatcher just said the client had requested different coverage. I asked what happened with 412. He said he didn't know, and I should stop asking. I asked one more person. A guy I knew who worked in the same building doing IT contract stuff. Ran into him at a coffee cart maybe 2 weeks after they moved me. I asked him if Suite 412 was still open. He said no. Some people had come through, not police exactly, but not police either, and the suite had been cleared out over a weekend. The lease was under a name that turned out to be fake, a person who didn't exist, and the mail forwarding address on file led to another empty office in San Mateo. He said whatever was actually going on there was bigger than one guy signing his own name 9 different ways in a painted envelope, and he'd heard through somebody upstairs that it connected to something the feds were already looking at. I didn't ask what. I didn't want to know what. I still don't. I kept doing courier work for a few more months and then switched jobs. Different city now. I think about that suite maybe twice a year, usually when I see a padded envelope on somebody's porch. What sticks with me isn't the guy, it's how normal he was, how boring the whole thing looked from the hallway. A door, a number, a signature. You could walk past it every day for a year and never notice. I guess a lot of people did. I've been placing C-suite executives for 11 years, and by March of 2021, I thought I'd seen every type. The narcissists, the drunks, the ones who looked perfect until you called their third reference. You develop a nose for it, which is why what happened with Adrian still keeps me up. The search came in from a client I'd worked with twice before, a manufacturing company out of Ohio looking for a new COO big package, 2.4 base, equity, the whole thing. The CEO wanted somebody who could turn around their supply chain division inside 18 months. Adrian's resume came through a mutual contact, not the usual channels. That should have been my first pause, but the guy on paper was almost embarrassing. Wharton. 12 years operations, 3 companies you'd recognize by name. Every reference leader read like it was written by someone slightly in love. We did the first call over Zoom. He was in a home office in Dallas, or what looked like one. Bookshelf behind him, no logos, framed print of some sailboat. He was in his mid-40s, gray at the temples, the kind of face that photographs well, calm hands. That's something I always watch. His stayed folded the whole call. He answered every question the way you want a CO to answer. Specific numbers when specific numbers mattered. General principles when principles were the right level. He asked about the client's cash position before I'd even finished my pitch. Not in a rude way, in the way someone does when they're already thinking about the job. I flew him to Chicago 2 weeks later for the in-person. We met at a steakhouse off Wacker, the kind of place with green banker lamps and waiters who don't write anything down. He ordered a Manhattan and sipped it once every 10 minutes. He remembered my assistant's name from a single email chain. He asked about my kids without making it weird. When the check came, he reached for it before I could, then let me take it back like it was a small joke between us. By dessert, I was ready to shortlist him. Then I ran the deep background. We use a firm out of Virginia for the top slots, not just criminal and credit, but the whole life. Property records, litigation, board seats, news mentions in a 50-mile radius of every address he's held since college. It takes about a week, and it's not cheap. On most candidates, it comes back boring, and I file it and move on. His came back on a Thursday afternoon. I was eating a salad at my desk. The report was 90 pages. I want to be clear that there was nothing on him. No arrests, no liens, not even a speeding ticket in the last decade. His name was clean the way a rented apartment is clean, right before the next tenant moves in. It was what was around him. 3 prior employers, all listed proudly on his LinkedIn. The first was a mid-cap logistics firm out of Atlanta. He'd been there as VP Operations from 2011 to 2014, left on good terms, glowing exit interview attached. 14 months after he walked out, their CFO was indicted for wire fraud. $160 million misrouted through Cayman entities. 2 other executives pled out. The stock never recovered. Second company, Boston, medical device manufacturer. He was there 2015 to 2017. COO left to pursue other opportunities. 11 months later, an FDA inspection uncovered records tampering going back 3 years. The head of quality went to federal prison. Adrian's name wasn't in the filings, not once. Third company, San Diego, a software firm that did back-office work for insurance carriers. He was chief strategy. He left in early 2020. 10 months after his last day, they were on the front page for a data breach involving 9 million policyholder records. The CTO and general counsel both got walked out by the FBI in November. I sat there for a while. My salad went warm. Any one of those, on its own, you shrug. Companies have bad quarters, bad years. Executives get sued. You can't hold a person responsible for what happens after they've left. That's the whole point of leaving, but the timing was the thing. Every one of them, roughly a year. Every one of them, he was already at the next place with a soft landing and reference letters that used the word integrity more than once. I pulled up the letters again. 2 of the 3 were signed by executives who were now cooperating witnesses. I called my boss the next morning. I laid it all out. She listened the whole way through without interrupting, which she never does. When I finished, she was quiet for about 10 seconds. "What do you want me to do with this?" she said. I said we needed to pull him from consideration. She agreed on that part instantly, no argument. But I pushed further. I said we should flag him internally, blacklist. Notify the other partners, maybe even reach out to the client at his current position. She said no on all of it. She said we didn't have anything. No conviction, no complaint, not even a Glassdoor thread. She said if we blacklisted every executive who happened to have been in the building before a scandal, we wouldn't have candidates. She said, and I remember this exactly, you can't put a man on a list for being lucky. I wrote the report anyway, 18 pages, timelines side by side, overlap of his tenure with the fraud windows in 2 of the 3 cases. The report went into a folder on our internal drive that I'm not sure anyone but me has ever opened. We told the Ohio client Adrian wasn't the right cultural fit. He took it well, sent me a handwritten card 2 weeks later, thanking me for my time. Blue ink, nice paper. He wished me continued success. 6 months later, I saw him on a press release. Different firm placed him. A pharmaceutical distributor headquartered in North Carolina, chief operating officer, big splash. The CEO called him a transformative hire. I set a Google alert. That was March 2022. It's been a year now, almost exactly. The alerts come through most WECs. Q1 earnings beat. New distribution hub in Greensboro. A charity gala where he stood next to the governor. Nothing bad, not a whisper. I checked their most recent 10Q last Tuesday. Their inventory numbers are off from cash flow in a way I don't love. Could be nothing. Could be timing. I'm not an accountant. The card he sent me is still in my desk drawer, under a stapler I never use. I don't know why I kept it. Every so often I take it out and read it. The handwriting is very even, almost printed. He signed it just Adrian. He'll leave that company sometime in the next 4 to 6 months. That's the pattern. He'll have another offer lined up before anyone knows he's looking, and the references will be pristine, and there'll be a party where somebody makes a toast. Then, about a year after that, something will happen at the pharma company, and it will be bad, and his name won't be in any of it. I check the alerts every morning before I open anything else. I'm still waiting. Most of what I do is boring. That's the honest answer. People hear satellite imagery analyst, and they picture some dark room with red lights and a guy tracking missiles across a screen. In reality, it was me. A lukewarm coffee and a windowless office in Northern Virginia where the AC ran too loud and the carpet smelled like it hadn't been replaced since 1998. April 2022. I was working a contract on land use change monitoring, boring stuff, timber, agriculture, illegal logging, in places nobody in the building could pronounce. Every morning, I'd pull down the fresh tiles, run them through the pipeline, flag anything that had changed more than a threshold, and write 2-paragraph summaries nobody read. That Tuesday, I was on a set of images from the Appalachians, West Virginia, deep into the national forest, one of those blank green patches on the map where there aren't even fire roads for miles. Nothing was supposed to be there. That's why we imaged it, actually. Baseline data for a forestry study. The tile came up on my second monitor and I almost scrolled past it. Then I stopped. In the middle of the frame, in a clearing that shouldn't have been a clearing, was a rectangle. Straight edges, long axis running roughly east-west. I zoomed in. At our resolution, it was maybe 40 pixels across, on the short side, so call it a building, roughly 50 by 120 meters. That's not a cabin, that's warehouse scale. No road led to it, not a 2-track, not even a footpath. The canopy just opened up around it, and there it sat. I ran the flag procedure. Then I did what you're supposed to do next, which is pull the historical stack. Same coordinates, older passes. We had good coverage of that area going back years because of the forestry contract. I went backwards month by month. 6 months earlier, October 2021, the rectangle wasn't there. Solid canopy, nothing. I pulled November. There it was, full structure, no construction visible in between, which is not physically reasonable. You don't put up a building that size in 30 days without heavy equipment, and heavy equipment leaves scars you can see from orbit for years. The building had a proper shadow, that was the other thing. I checked shadow length against the sun angle for that date. It was a real solid, not a canvas cover, not a tarp thing, something with a roof. I sat back. Checked my coffee. It was cold. I hadn't gotten up. Then I pulled the image from a month after the one on my screen. May 2022 wasn't available yet, so I grabbed the most recent pass we had, mid-March. The rectangle was gone, but the clearing was different. Not overgrown, the opposite. The trees around where it had stood were flater, bent outward from a center point, like something had pushed them from the inside. No burn scar, no debris field I could resolve, just this splayed pattern in the canopy that made me think of grass under a boot. I sat with that for a while. The rational part of my brain went through options. Logging camp, drug lab, some kind of temporary agricultural structure. But none of those explain the placement. There was no way to get to it. Whoever built it either walked in every piece by hand or flew it in. And if you're flying prefabricated warehouse panels into a national forest, you are not doing something that shows up in a business filing. I stared at the screen for maybe 20 minutes. The air handler cycled on and off. Someone down the hall was microwaving fish. I could smell it through the door. I marked the coordinates, wrote up a short note. Standard format, no speculation, just what I saw and when. Then I walked it over to one of the senior analysts. He was a guy people called Roach. I never learned why, and I never asked. He'd been in the building since before I was born. He read the note. He looked at the tile on my laptop. He zoomed in and out twice. He didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, "Leave this with me." I said, "You want the historical stack too?" He said, "Yeah, send it to my secure share, nothing on email." I said, "Okay." I asked because I couldn't not ask, "Any idea what it is?" He looked at me the way you look at somebody who's asked a question you're not supposed to answer. Not annoyed, just tired. He said, "I'll send it where it needs to go." That was it. I went back to my desk, finished the shift. Flagged 3 more changes that afternoon, all of them boring, all of them the kind of thing that got a check mark and disappeared into the reports pile. I went home, made pasta, watched something on my laptop I don't remember, slept fine. I don't say that for effect. I mention it because it bothers me now, looking back. I should not have slept fine. 3 days later, my badge didn't work at the main door. The guard waved me over, checked something on his monitor, made a call, and told me to wait in the small conference room off the lobby, the one with no windows and a phone that only dialed internal extensions. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes. My hands felt warm, and I noticed I was pressing them flat against the table. 2 people came in. One I knew by face, from security. The other I'd never seen. He was in his 50s, gray suit, no lanyard, which was strange. Everyone had a lanyard in that building. Even the vending machine repair guy had a lanyard. He put a folder on the table and slid a single sheet toward me. Non-disclosure, not the boilerplate one I'd signed when I started. This one was thicker, different letterhead, different language. It named a specific set of coordinates by degree, minute, second. It named the date I'd pulled the tiles. It named the historical passes I'd requested from archive. I read it twice. Then I asked what I was signing about. The man in the gray suit said, "You're signing that you won't discuss what you saw." I said, "What did I see?" He looked at me and said, "You saw imagery." That's all you need to know. I signed it. They took the folder. The security guy gave me back my badge, told me it would work now, told me to go back to my desk and continue my day. So I did. Later that afternoon, I went into the system and deleted the coordinates from my active project files, cleared the cache, emptied the flagged change queue for that region. That part was procedure. Nothing about what I'd done felt unusual to the software. The memory is a different story. I still know the coordinates. I could type them right now. I won't. That's not because I'm afraid of the paper I signed, though I am, a little. It's because every time I've thought about them since, I've also thought about that flattened pattern in the canopy, the way the trees leaned outward from a center. Whatever had been in that rectangle for a month, it left before anyone came to look. And whatever it left in, or on, it didn't need doors. I don't work that contract anymore. I asked to be moved. They moved me without asking why. The building is still out there in the archive, 6 months of it, in a folder I can't open. Somebody can. Somebody did. I hope they figured out what it was. I hope they figured it out before it came back.